So hello and welcome to this conference. The title of my presentation is Diversity and Inclusion, Lessons from the Little Prince. My name is Rick Serrano. I am an executive and life coach and a philosopher, and I will have the privilege to guide you tonight through this presentation. Let me start by thanking the Institute of Internal Auditors Luxembourg, Mirela, and all the staff for this invitation. I am very, very honored to be here with you, especially now that you are celebrating your 25th anniversary. So thank you for the invitation. So I will try to be very quick and dynamic in my presentation. I tend to talk very quickly, but please do not hesitate to interrupt me. Do not hesitate if you want to make comments or ask questions. Just jump in, just raise your hand, and I will be very glad to make this very interactive. I will also be asking you some questions, so please feel free and relax and enjoy this presentation. I know you have been through a long day of very interesting conferences, but you might be tired, and I'm the only thing separating you from dinner and party. So that's quite a challenge. I will try to be dynamic, but do not hesitate again to interrupt me if you have any questions. So I will be talking about The Little Prince, which, as you certainly know, has been written by Antoine de Saint Exupéry. This is a person who was born in Lyon in 1900 and who disappeared somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea in 1944. He was a French writer, poet, aristocrat, journalist, and aviator, which is very relevant for the story. And he wrote this fantastic book that everybody has probably read, that everybody has probably seen the latest movies or the latest Netflix series and so forth. Let me start by asking you very quickly if you can raise your hands just super quickly, and of course there's no right or wrong answers, but let me start by asking you just like a quick poll here. How many of you have read the book? If you can raise your hands. Okay, thank you. Now let me ask you something else. Do you remember its content? Because you probably read it a long time ago, so let me ask you if you remember the content. Now let me ask you if you at all apply any lessons of that. Any one of you would say that you apply lessons from The Little Prince? Well, tonight we will try to show you that there is a lot, like really a big deal of things that you can apply to your life from this little book, this fascinating little book called The Little Prince. Let me also tell you that this is one of the most read books ever. You know, when researching for this conference, of course, I was checking exactly what the ranking is of the book. And it's very difficult because there are different rankings depending on how you count the readers. But in any case, 200 million copies sold worldwide, 14 million sold only in France, 300 translations, 400 million readers, a theme park, official stores, you name it. It's a big success. Now, the point is, what or how does this connect with diversity and inclusion, which is the title of the conference and is the topic that, you know, everybody has been talking about diversity and inclusion in the last years. And in every company, of course, diversity and inclusion has become a very important topic with a policy, with some measures, with some instructions, and so forth. But what is this, and why do we talk about diversity and inclusion? Well, let me tell you. First of all, let me give you some definitions. This is how Cambridge University, for example, defines diversity and inclusion. I'm going to let you read here. But, you know, it's like a cold definition. Well, this is the definition of the two separated concepts, which is not the same than when you put them together. But in any case, gives you an indication. This talks about different people, different ideas, different opinions, bringing people and experiences together and grasping the advantages. In any case, as you can see, the definition is not really helping us a lot, right? Even if it comes from Cambridge, which I'm very close to. If you look at the Oxford definition, well, it's probably even weaker, may I say. But in any case, these are the independent concepts. So it's not the same defining them in separate contexts than integrate. But in any case, they point to range of many people, things that are different from each other, so meaning different from us, and inclusion, the quality or fact of bringing other people into the same range, into the same group. So that's about it. But, the question here is, why do you think we should care about diversity and inclusion? So, okay, beyond the obvious, let's try to think beyond the obvious. That's the goal of tonight. Now, for me, there are several reasons why you want to care about diversity and inclusion. Of course, for the sake of justice, of course, for the sake of respect, that's pretty basic. But also, and then it gets a little bit more interesting, we want to take care of diversity and inclusion because we want to ensure that we capture all talent. Well, it turns out that diverse people are talented, right? So we don't want to leave that talent out, especially when, as we have heard this morning, the second risk is talent. So, that is a clear indication that we want to care about diversity and inclusion. We also, of course, want to be in line with the times. Let's be very open and very honest. We want to avoid lawsuits. We want to avoid bad press. And to be very practical, many companies need to comply with quotas, to say it very clear and very openly. And that's, of course, there's, of course, room for debate there. Now, when I was studying for, trying to find a nice definition that would encompass all these reasons why diversity and inclusion is important, I, of course, went and checked what Harvard says. Of course, I am a little bit biased here, but, for me, this is a very good definition. So President Bako, president of Harvard, gives this definition that I have highlighted for you, some couple of things here. So the important thing of diversity and inclusion is capitalizing on the full range of ideas. And Harvard becomes better not only because of being diverse is important, but also because it enhances the learning environment. So that means that if you allow for diversity and inclusion, if you promote diversity, you will learn more, which of course everybody would agree that is important to learn more. Also because this is a point of discrimination and harm. Nobody should be harmed because of this. And only by including people of all backgrounds and experiences, you really capture the whole thing and the whole value. Okay, well, nobody would argue that's the theory, that's the theoretical part, those are the definitions. But as I was saying before, let's try to think beyond this. Let's try to go way beyond this, and let's try to analyze whether the Little Prince can teach us more lessons, because there is a lot to talk about diversity and inclusion. But I believe that the audience that I am talking to tonight, well, we are, let's say it very clearly, we are all an elite. You are an elite. You belong to a highly educated group of people from a rich country, and you belong to a lucrative profession. So you are in a level that is way beyond the basics. Of course, the basics and the very fundamentals will include things like this. This is diversity and inclusion to a large extent. Of course, respecting all colors, including all colors. Of course, accepting that there are gay couples, that there are lesbian couples, that they can be at work, that they can contribute. And nobody would argue with that. Then, in some cases, it gets a little bit more tricky, but still, I think we all tend to agree. The burqa at the workplace, the burqa at school. Yes, we would say, yeah, that should be allowed, that should not be a problem. Well, let me tell you, there's a lot of room for improvement still here, even in Luxembourg, for example. One of my kids, for example, has been told that he's not allowed to bring his cross to school. This is the cross. So you can see a tiny little cross, he's not allowed. So are we being diverse in the right way? So are we taking the burqas, but are we rejecting the crosses? Are we taking the gay couples, and are we rejecting the 45-year-old plain vanilla man? Well, that's a question for reflection, I believe. Everybody, of course, agrees that we want diverse teams. Everybody acknowledges this at this point, that diverse teams, including women, including all racial origins and all religions and thinking, is a positive thing. Nobody would argue this. And of course, I believe that at least in principle, we would all agree that allowing women, specifically women, to climb the ladder and get to higher levels of the organizations, that's a good thing to happen. Nobody would argue that. We have several presidents, women, we have women at the top in all sorts of organizations. So for me, and especially for this audience, all these topics are very important, yes, but are to some extent, how shall I say, not completed, but very much advanced at least. And of course, in the less developed countries, there's a hell lot to do. But mostly in the environments that we operate, mostly this is not separated again, but yes, very much advanced. Of course, nobody wants these days boards like this, purely dominated alpha male boards. We want, and we all agree that this is more the desired kind of board, constitutional board that we want. At least most of us would agree with that. Now, there is the big question of how do you get to this level? Because there are cases where you have boards these days being constituted not because of talent, but because of quotas. And you might know about companies putting women into positions for the main reason that, yes, they have talent, of course, but mainly, but nobody will speak openly about this, but mainly because I want to comply with the quota. That, unfortunately, is still a reality. So, yeah, we have made a big progress. Yes, we have advanced in many areas. There is still room for improvement. Okay, but is that it? Is that truly it? I mean, everybody would agree with everything that I said. I think, at least in principle, we should do more, we should open more, we should promote more, we should value the people, etc., etc., etc. That's all okay. But the point is there more about diversity? Or is diversity really only focused to the external? And this is what matters to me. So, being diverse and being inclusive, is that referring only to outside me, so what happens outside me, or is that somehow something that I can turn the telescope, and instead of using a telescope or a periscope, I could turn it into a microscope and look inside me? You know, I am a philosopher, and philosophers, we only ask stupid questions. You know, I only ask stupid questions. And it's not that I have a lot of time, but some of the time that I do have, I used to ask myself stupid questions. Stupid questions like, for example, who I am. What am I doing here? Why am I here doing this here tonight with you? Or what is my destiny? Or am I doing the things that I really care for? Am I being the person that I really want to be? You know, stupid stuff like this, right? So, you know, because basic diversity and inclusion, so the one of basic non-discrimination, that is not new. Already in 1943, when the book was published, Antoine de Saint Exupéry made it very clear. He tells us about the story of an astronomer who has discovered a planet and who has shown up at a very important congress here in Europe, but he was Turk, so he shows up in Turkish typical dress, and nobody would listen to him because of his attire. But guess what? Next year he comes back and he's dressing in a Western way, and of course everybody was applauding the theory. And the theory was the same identical theory that he had shown the year before, but this time he was accepted because of the way he was looking. Well, you know, so that proves us that diversity and inclusion is an old thing. Saint-Exupéry said it already in 1943. So, is that it, or is there much about it? For me, diversity and inclusion is way more than that. Way, way more than that. It's really something that should put the focus not on the external, not on the other people, but on yourself. And let me speak first, but on myself. So when you think of diversity and inclusion, what if you stop looking at the people next to you, or what your company is doing, or what your organization is doing, and what if you start looking inside of you? Because this is about snake boas. This is about snake boas that have that have ingested an elephant. This is not about hats. This is about boas, right? So take a moment to reflect and turn your eyes from the external to the inside and think of the boas and the elephants in your life and think of yourself. That is what I care for. That is where I come in. That is where philosophy comes in. People frequently ask me, is philosophy important? Is philosophy still valid? Philosophy has been eliminated from many of the school curriculum worldwide. So is philosophy still alive? And the answer that I give is very simple. I say, are you alive? Do you care about yourself? Do you care about your life? Well, as long as the answer is yes, philosophy is more alive than ever. And I will show you that this is precisely what is happening. This is precisely what the Little Prince is telling you. The Little Prince is inviting you to look inside your heart, to close your eyes and look inside yourself. And this, in my view, is the real diversity. You know, the first very basic question to ask yourself is, am I still judging the astronomer because of his attire? Well, if the answer is yes, you have a problem. So go and fix it. But I'm not going to talk about that problem. I almost take for granted that most of you don't have any more the problem about the dress, and you acknowledge and value the theory because of the value in the theory. So where or what shall we be looking? And it's very simple. As a philosopher, like Socrates said, it's very simple. It's just about asking questions. It's just about asking, and making your own questioning. So this is not about me, Rick, asking you questions. This is about you facing yourself and taking some valuable time, quality time, to make yourself the important questions of life. And of course, only you can know what those questions are. But in any case, this is not about your organization. This is not about the Institute of Internal Auditors, or this is not about the company you work for. This is not about your clients or about the policy that maybe the company has framed up there on a wall. This is about yourself. This is about you. What really matters, and to be very honest, the only thing that matters to me is you. And I'm talking to you in the second person of the singular. So, in other words, this is talking about Asteroid B612. As you probably know, the Little Prince comes from a little asteroid in the middle of the universe called Asteroid B612. And, you know, you might think, well, asteroids are not relevant to me. Well, NASA just the other day exploded an asteroid to deviate it because it could impact Earth at some point, right? So asteroids are indeed relevant, right? And the point is that you live in an asteroid. Take a look at this slide. I particularly like this slide that I built, borrowing the image of the Little Prince on his asteroid or his planet B612. But I put that red background because I find it very communicative that the background is so red, and it gives the feeling of the third dimension because it is floating there. What I want to show you is that you are standing on your little B612 and you are alone. That is the crude reality. Even if you belong to an organization, even if you belong to an institute, even if you belong to a family and you have neighbors and friends, the fact of the matter is each and every one of us is alone on Asteroid B612. And you need to make sure that you live happy on Asteroid B612 because you cannot escape from Asteroid B612. You can go around the universe and you can go visiting many planets, but you will always come back to B612. So the point is, how are you doing with yourself in B612? That's the real point. So that is where diversity comes in, because are you being diverse with yourself? And you're going to ask me probably, what do you really mean diverse with yourself? Well, we're going to study this. So the Little Prince takes a trip and he goes around planets. He goes visiting different planets, small planets, right? And in every planet, he will find a different character. And it's important to listen to what the characters are saying because they're communicating you many things of human behavior. And each and every one of those characters has questions for you. You are auditors, so you are used to go places and check accounts and check things and delve into the detail and find things. Well, this is about making an internal trip in yourself and visiting the different planets. So living for a moment B612 and visiting different planets and listening to the guys in those planets to see what they have to say to you. That is the diversity that we're focusing on. So all the characters are very diverse. The first one is a businessman. So the little prince arrives to this little planet and he talks to the businessman, and the businessman is only concentrated on counting things. Only important things. Only things that matter to the adults. You know, I am very serious and my work is super formal, and I do, you know, I'm the most important auditor in the UK and I audit accounts for this and this and that company, or I work for the Big Four or for the European Union, and so forth and so forth. So don't distract me with stupid things. I am concentrated on these numbers. And he spends his life looking at those numbers. And he spends all his energy on looking at those numbers. And the only thing that matters is what can be counted. And he passes hours and hours counting. And he thinks he's absolutely important. But to some extent, he forgets why he's doing that, or what is that going to bring eventually. But the little prince asks very innocent questions. So why do you do that? Do you possess that? And he says, oh yeah, the numbers are here. I got them all here. You know, many years ago, I was a CFO of an international company, of the subsidiary of an international company. And we spent weeks and weeks creating the income statement. And the end result at the end of the month was a one-page Excel sheet. And at some point I asked to myself, is that it? Is that life? Spending hours and hours and hours to generate a one-page Excel sheet. I'm not saying that is wrong if that is your life. The only thing that I am saying is dare to ask yourself. Dare to ask yourself, is that what life is all about? Or can I be diverse within my universe? Can I be diverse without my life? So that's the businessman. Next planet, he goes to the king. And the king is obsessed with giving orders. And the king wants to rule. Even if he lives in a very small planet, objectively speaking, but for him is everything that it is. And he rules and he tells the stars to move or to stop moving. And he tells generals to go and make war, although there are no generals. And he says, you can be in my second hand here, and I will ask you and give you orders and you will obey. Well, how much time do you spend with people who are obsessed giving orders? Who sometimes just give absurd orders because they want you to do absurd things. And this is an eternal absurdity, and rules that govern rules. How much time do you spend with that? Do you ever land in this kind of planet? Do you ever land with this kind of people? Well, these are diverse people. Are you diverse vis-a-vis yourself in this respect? Do you ever find yourself giving these sort of orders just for the sake of the order, just for the sake of giving the order? Well, let's move on to the next planet. In the next planet, he finds a lamplighter. And the lamplighter needs to turn on the lamp when the sunset comes, and turn off the light when the sun rises again. And he does that all the time, and he's obsessed with the task. And he says to the little prince, the only thing that matters is the task. And the task, everything should be done for the task, and I cannot interrupt the task. And there was a time when I could rest because the day used to last 24 hours, but now the day lasts just a few minutes. So I need to turn on, turn off continuously. And my life has become so hectic, but I cannot abandon the task. Have you ever found yourself turning on and turning off the lamp. Do you ever see yourself doing that? Well, that is the question. Take a look inside of yourself and reflect. Am I turning on and turning off light? How long am I going to be doing this task? Is the task really worthwhile? Do I really want to do this with my life? That is the courage of asking diverse questions. Now, the next planet, he goes and finds a drunkard. And the drunkard drinks, and he has all these bottles, all these empty bottles, and all these full bottles, and he needs to drink. And of course, he drinks to forget. But he has forgotten to forget about what? He has forgotten, but he drinks and drinks and drinks and drinks. Of course, to forget. Have you ever found yourself avoiding confronting the important questions of life? Have you ever found yourself avoiding asking yourself, what is your life all about and where are you heading? Have you ever found yourself distracting yourself? Like probably, for example, exercising a lot and doing all that sport to liberate stress. So I do it because I need to liberate stress. Or, taking all those yoga lessons after yoga lessons after yoga lessons, or smoking and smoking and smoking, or anything like that. Is that because you really like it, or are you avoiding something? Are you, because you can be a drunkard with yoga classes, or you can be a drunkard running marathons, or you can be a drunkard working hours and hours by being a workaholic. Is there something that you are hiding from? Is there something that you want to cover? Well, ask yourself that, because that is posing yourself diverse questions of your existence. And I repeat myself, the only important thing that matters here tonight is you now. All the rest can disappear. I can disappear. All the people around can disappear. But the only important person is you standing on B612. So ask yourself, and let's go to the next planet. In the next planet, we have the vain man. The vain man only wants admiration and applause. And he's the only person on the planet, by the way, but he wants to be honored, and he wants to receive nice comments. And he wants to be the number one and the most beautiful, and I am the boss, and I am the boss, and I am the boss. Do you ever act like the vain man? Do you deal with vain men? If the answers are yes, well, make a reflection. Why are you doing that? Why are you dealing with that? Are you tolerating that? Are you suffering that? How much time is that consuming from your life? Well, those are like some of the planets that the Little Prince visits. But then finally he goes into one planet where there's this geographer with this huge geography book, reading and studying, and he says, well, what are you doing? And he says, I'm a geographer. I am very important, and the geography books are the most important books ever. Any client that says, we are the most important company in this most important industry, and nobody understands our business, and our business is so difficult. It's not like the others, because I have changed careers so many times and I have changed industries so many times. I have the experience that in every single industry that I arrive, call it elevators, call it insurance, call it education, call it women fashion. In every industry when I arrive, people tell me, this is the most difficult business on earth. And you don't know, because the industry that you come from is different, but my industry is so complex. The competition is so fierce, and there are so many factors playing here. Nobody can understand it. This is the geographer speaking. This is the geographer telling about the geography. And by the way, I register everything here. I register every mountain, every volcano, every river, every sea, every island. And then the Little Prince asks, do you register the flowers? And of course the geographer, are you kidding? The flowers are ephemeral. I'm not going to waste my time on that. And he says, but for me, the flower is the most important thing on earth. And the geographer says, well, I couldn't care less. It will disappear. And the Little Prince says, yeah, it will certainly disappear. And yet it's the most important thing for me. Well, the question here for you is, are you trapped on those big, important geography books? Are you registering only islands and volcanoes and mountains that do not move? Or do you take time to look into yourself and care about roses? Well, this is why I say diversity, but internal diversity, looking at yourself, looking inside yourself and questioning yourself, that is the real challenge here. Now then, so that's the last planet that the Little Prince visits, and then he lands on Earth because he's recommended to go to Earth. He lands on the desert, and he finds a desert flower, and he's looking for people. So he asks the flower, where's the people? And the flower said, people? Here's the desert. So there's no people. Yet there are people. I saw like 6 or 7 the other day passing by. There was a caravan and I saw them passing. And the Little Prince said, okay. So what happens? The flower is in the desert. And when you are in the desert, it's like you are in isolation. You are not including, literally including. And tonight is about diversity and inclusion. If you don't include, your perspective gets very, very narrow. And your perspective makes you think that on Earth there is like maybe 6 or 7 people. At the time of the book, when the book was published, the world's population was around 2.5 billion. Well, the flower was thinking there might be 7 or 8. The point here is, do you have perspective of your own life, of your own existence? Or do you think there are 6 or 7 things? Right? And only you know what I'm talking about. Now, what happens here is that unless you dare to ask yourself for the real important things in your life, only then will you notice the roses. What is the rose for you? The invitation tonight to think about diversity and inclusion is to dare to ask yourself to think differently, diversely, than what you have been thinking, what you are thinking and acting and working every day, many hours a day. And dare to ask yourself, what is my flower? The obvious answer, don't give me the obvious answer, because I know the obvious answer is, oh, my kids, oh, my little girl, oh, my little... Yeah, that's the obvious thing, of course. I'm not looking for that kind of flowers. Those flowers are beautiful. I have 4 of them, and of course, I give everything for them. But there are more things, inner, deeper inside of you that you need to be asking yourself. Because guess what? Your little kids, as beautiful as they are, they will go soon. So the question is, what is it that you really want to nurture in your life? What is it that you really want to water and protect from the wind and protect from the rays of the sun? And there are 2 ways of doing this. One is to look at other flowers and then ask yourself, how am I doing with respect to the other flowers? And then verifying that your flower is the only one that matters, or by noticing that other people have flowers and that you have forgotten your own. So again, this is all about you and only about you. And I don't have the answers for you. I only have the invitation for you to look inside your heart. Just like the aviator and the Little Prince when they met in the middle of the desert. You might remember the famous episode where the Little Prince goes to the aviator who is busy there fixing the plane, and he goes and says, could you please draw me a sheep? The famous Dessine-moi un mouton. And the aviator is super busy. He says, what are you talking about? I cannot do this now, right? Anyway, he tries to draw the sheep, and he comes up with this. But of course, the Little Prince says, come on, no, this sheep is already very sick. Make me another one. And then he tries again and comes up with this. And then he says, that's not a sheep, you see? That's a ram. It has horns. And then he goes for the 3rd time, and then the Little Prince says, oh, come on, but this is too old. I want a sheep that can live long time. So eventually what happens? The aviator realizes that he's not capable of drawing. He remembers why. But he says, I am blocked here. I need to go back to fixing my plane. And this little boy is asking me to draw a sheep that I cannot. So, okay, drastic solution. And he comes up with a radically creative solution. a radically creative solution. He draws a box with 3 holes and says, the ship that you want is inside, go, leave me alone. And then the little prince is fascinated because it is exactly as he wanted it to be. Well, this is about coming up with radically creative solutions. If your life is not where you want it to be, what's the radically creative solution that you can come up with? What is the box that you can come up with for that? And remember, the aviator asks, when he's asked to draw, he realizes that he's not able to draw. But the important thing is here that he acknowledges that he's not able to draw and that he realizes why he's not capable of drawing. And that is important. He remembers the story of the boa open and the boa closed that everybody thought was a simple old hand. And he remembers with a lot of pain that it is because of the grown-ups that he needed to forget that, and he turned to the language of the adults and he started talking about neckties, golf, and politics. And then everybody thought he was very reasonable. He turned out and the grown-ups told him to forget about the drawings of boas, either open or closed, and concentrate on the serious things of life. Concentrate on grammar, mathematics, geography, and forget about the boas, either open or closed. We don't care about that. This is like killing creativity. Pablo Picasso used to say, we are all painters. Every single kid is a great painter, but the adults convince them that they are not. This is Pablo Picasso. And, if you allow that to happen, this is killing your imagination. This is killing your diversity. This is killing what you really are, what you really should be carrying. This is killing your volcanoes, especially that one that is not with fire, especially that one. If you only listen to the adults and you talk about neckties and politics and golf, you are killing volcanoes. You are killing roses. You are killing your dreams. You are killing your dreams. So, is this important? Now, you're auditors, you like numbers. I'm a former CFO. I also use numbers. So, how do you combine that? Well, let me give you some numbers in case you need numbers, right? So, you need adult-like numbers. I'll give you some adult-like numbers. So, let me put up this slide. So, what is a 168? Any clue? What is 168? Well, 168 is the number of hours that you have in a given week. Let me assume that you work a lot. Let me assume that you are not workaholic, but that you work a lot. Let's say 10 hours a day. So that gives me 118 hours. And let me assume that you sleep well. That big assumption. Let me assume that you sleep 7 hours a day. That gives me 49. So that gives me 69 effective hours out of work and out of sleeping for all the other things that you want to do in life. For all the other things, you are flexible of deciding them, especially now more after COVID that you can work from home. That means approximately 10 hours per day. That means approximately 300 hours a month. I call them, by the way, DH, because I call them dream hours for your dreams. That is about 3,548 dream hours per annum. That's a hell lot of time. I call it, that's the dream hours that you have available every year. And you're going to tell me, yeah, but you have not considered that I need to take the kids. Yeah, nobody forces you to do it. There's ways around that. And by the way, I could actually increase this number because you can turn dream hours, you can turn work hours into dream hours if you really concentrate and if you're really effective. The important thing is that the minimum number of dream hours that you have is around this. So is this a lot of time? Well, let me give you more numbers. If you wanted to learn a new language and take you from level A1 to C2, on average, it will take you 1,000 hours. 1,000. Or if you wanted to learn a new instrument, it will take you about 5,500 hours to learn a new instrument from scratch. Or if you wanted to master a new sport, the rule is even called the 10,000 hour rule. Well, it's around 10,000 hours. So now, let me tell you something else. These are some numbers that I put up, but you need to make your own numbers. And you know what the most important variable is about this? The most important variable here is not how many hours you have in the week, or how many hours you sleep, or how many hours you use for commuting. The most important number that you need to be very conscious of is this one: life expectancy. Because yes, you're gonna die. I'm gonna die. Everybody's gonna die. If we're very lucky, we're talking about this kind of life expectancy. For Luxembourg male people, 78 hours. Okay, you can argue, you can find me other figures, you can find me more years. I don't care. I'm not anymore an auditor. But if you find a better number, take that better number, and then you need to subtract, for example, in my case, assuming these numbers were correct, 79 minus 53, which is my current age, that leaves me 26 years, which means about 92,000 dream hours. That is the amount of hours that I have available on average. Now, be conscious that the number of average can be low, okay? It's an average because there are people who die before, so I could well die before 79. So the number of hours that I have available is a hell lot of hours, so I better use them. This is, by the way, not my idea. The way of making this calculation is Martin Heidegger's idea. He used to say, we are created for death. You need to think from this very moment till you're dead. So if I subtract those hours, I could, in theory at least, learn 92 new languages from A1 to C2 until I hang up my tennis shoes. And I will have time for learning 17 new instruments or master 9 new sports. How about that? So the only thing that I'm not trying to convince you about my numbers. The only thing that I'm trying to do tonight here is make conscious use of your own dream hours. And you only know the numbers. You're auditors. I'm not going to convince you on that. But I want to ask you to take conscious of that. Call numbers are silly, but making you conscious is what matters. Now, am I the only one talking about this thing? Well, of course not. The Harvard Business School has just published something called the Life Matrix, a tool designed to help you step back, and consider how you are living your life based on what matters to you. I just completed this a couple of weeks ago. It's called the Life Matrix. They ask you what you care about. They put in the typical 3x3 matrix, what you care, what you should be doing more, and what you should be doing less. They come up with the allocation rings. Do more of this, do more of that. What do you do for joy? What do you do for meaning? What do you do for achievement? And so forth. So the point is, if HBS is doing this, and if I am telling you this, and if you're auditors, and if you are so patient to have listened to me so far, well, it's because we want you to be conscious of your time. Why do we want to make you conscious of this? Because then you will start seeing the boa from the inside. You will start seeing the elephant inside the boa. Then you will boost your creativity and you will be a great painter. Then you will come up with radical, innovative solutions, and you will make your imagination explode, and you will come up with boxes that contain whatever you want. Because diversity is precisely the freedom to put inside your box whatever you want. Not what your boss wants from you, not what your organization wants from you, not what your parents wanted from you, or what your wife or your husband expects or hopes from you. You put in the goddamn box whatever you want. That is the point. Now, you should be ready to die for that. You should be ready to give up things for that. You should be ready to renounce too many things for that. But it's about your life. It's about your existence. So for me, appreciate your own diversity and bring back the original dreams in life and make them alive. Diversity is about your own diversity. And again, we're talking about your life in Asteroid B612. I'm not saying that you should be isolated. What I'm saying is you should make yourself aware that you are there on Asteroid B612 and that you are the most important thing on Earth. Sometimes I wonder why I need to convince people that the most important thing on Earth is you. right? But I really struggle, but people struggle to realize this. Now, I have 3 little rules. I use a lot of rules, but let's say for Asteroid B612, I use 3 little rules. I have rules for everything, but my rules for life in Asteroid B612 are the following. First of all, not surprisingly, time is your #1 asset. People usually tell you, oh, health is an important thing. If you don't have health, you don't have anything. Well, I tend to disagree. Actually, we're all going to get something. We're all going to die of something. Time is actually more important than health, in my view of life. So be conscious of your time. Be conscious of how you use it. Be very jealous how you spend your time, and make it the #1 decision-making driver in your life. Secondly, please acknowledge, accept, praise the fact that you are a prince on planet B612, a princess, or I don't care about the gender, but you are a prince. Treat yourself as such and ask people to treat you as such. You are a prince. You are, again, the most important thing here on earth. You are most important than Queen Elizabeth II, who just died and had a 10-day funeral with 220 state leaders joining her for the goodbye. Well, you are more important than Queen Elizabeth II, believe it or not. Number 3, my mantra of life is, I need to make my life extraordinary, and me and only me is the factor that will turn my life into being extraordinary. So these are my 3 little rules for Asteroid B612. Time is your #1 asset. You are a prince or princess. Make your life extraordinary. So what is in the end, to conclude, what is in the end D&I? The real diversity for me is allowing yourself to live your dreams. And the real inclusion is bringing lots of roses, foxes, volcanoes, and sheep back into your life. With that, I'm going to close here. But before I close, let me tell you, if you're interested in these subjects, if you want to learn more, I have a series of videos on YouTube about time, more philosophical approach of time, but maybe you could be interested. And very importantly, because I say that you're a prince or a princess, make sure you are with the right partner. Don't waste time there. I am the creator of this theory called the picky cherry picking theory. You can check it up on YouTube. It has been presented at Harvard as well, and is a very strict auditor-like 10-step methodology to verify that you are with the right love partner. So don't waste time. And that is, of course, applicable not only to the partner, but also to the company that you're working for, or your business partner, or anybody that you are spending time with. Now, if you want to learn more about my view of life, there's also videos on life and extraordinary life that you can find all that on YouTube. And with that, let me thank you for your attention, and let me close it here for questions and comments. Let me also invite you to sign up for my next event. We're going to have a lot of events here in Luxembourg, just like we had last year for the academic year 2022-2023. We have a series of very dynamic conferences that I invite you to discover. If you want to sign up, just come to me after the conference, and I will be very glad to give you my card. With that, let me thank you once again, all of you and the Institute of Internal Auditors Luxembourg. Congratulations on the 25 years of anniversary. And with that, I close, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you once again, Mirela, and I'm looking forward to the party. Thank you and good night.